Hi everyone, and welcome to a new tutorial on how to install Python and the Pycharm IDE. To begin, we need to first check which version of Windows that we are using. By version, I mean either 32-bit or 64-bit. So what we need to do is to open the Start menu and then search About. An option will appear saying About your PC. Open this option. When the window pops up, scroll down until you see a heading labeled System Type. Next to this heading, you should see your version of Windows. It'll say 64-bit if you're running a 64-bit version and 32-bit if you are running a 32-bit version. Now, to install Python, what we want to do is to open a web browser, and then in the address bar, type python.org. At the top, you should see a button labeled Menu. If we click that button, a sidebar should appear on the left with the heading Downloads. If we click Downloads, we should be navigated to this page. Underneath the Download the latest version of Python, you should see a yellow button. Click the button. From here, on this page, if we scroll down, we should see a heading labeled Files. Underneath Files are all the installation options that we have. We can install for macOS or Windows. As you can see, there are also options for what processor type we have. x86-64 means 64-bit and x86 just means 32-bit. So I will select the x86-64 executable installer. Then I will save that file. So after the file has finished downloading, we want to run the file. To do this, we can just open the file. A window should appear with the text Install Python. At the bottom, you'll see two checkboxes. The first checkbox will be selected by default. The second checkbox will say Add Python 3.7 to path. Now, path is pretty much just an environment variable in Linux-based operating systems, which just specifies a set of directories that contain executable files. You don't really need to worry about this too much right now, just make sure the option is selected. Then, click Install Now. At this point, you don't really need to do much more. Just wait until the progress bar finishes. Once the installation is complete, you should see this screen now, saying Setup was successful. To test the validity of this statement, open the Start menu, and then type cmd. Run the command prompt as an administrator. Once the command prompt window appears, just type python space -- version. And there you have it. Your version of Python that you just installed should appear as the output on the command prompt. So now that we've installed Python, I want to shift the conversation to IDEs. So IDEs are also known as Integrated Development Environments, and Python actually comes equipped with its own. The IDE that I'm talking about is idle. It comes equipped when you install Python from python.org. And it's a pretty decent editor that you can use. So as you can see, when we open our Start menu at the top over here, we see idle for Python. So if we open that, we should see this window pop up. And this window is also known as the Python shell. So over here, we can just execute basic Python commands. Like I can type print hello world. And there you have it. It's outputted to the shell. Now, if I want to create an actual program, I can go to the toolbar at the top, click File, and then New File. From here, I can create a Python program, so I can declare a variable, call it var, set equal to hello, and then print that. And then to run it, I first need to save it, which is telling me. So I'll just name it main. And then I'll run it, and you can see it's outputted to the shell. No problems. So idle is a pretty decent editor for Python applications, and if you're not going too far into Python, it's good enough to have this as your primary IDE. The problem that I have with idle is that it doesn't necessarily have the best user interface, and you're missing a lot of plugins and features that are available in professional IDEs. So that's the reason I primarily use Pycharm. So what we want to do now is to go back to our web browser, and then in the address bar just search Pycharm. So the first result on Google that pops up from JetBrains is the one that you want to click. Apologies for the slow internet. Okay, so over here in the middle of the screen, you should see a download button. You just want to click that button. And on this page, you have two options to install, either the Professional Edition or the Community Edition. So the Professional Edition has a lot more features, especially for web development. Like for instance, you can program in HTML, JavaScript, CSS, all in the Professional Edition. And in the Community Edition, you only get Python support. So for right now, we'll just only download the Community Edition. And then we will again save that file. Okay, so once the Pycharm file is downloaded, we want to run the file again. And then we can see Pycharm is preparing for setup. And then we should see this screen, welcome to Pycharm Community Edition setup. So over here, you can just simply click next. Then you have to specify a destination folder. You can either change it or keep the default, doesn't really matter. Just click next. And over here, we have the option to create file associations and a bunch of other options. So you can make a desktop icon if you want, or you can add to the right-click context menu, as you can see. And then you can also create associations with all Python files. And I don't really recommend this because Pycharm can actually take a while to open sometimes, and you might be better off just running it in idle. So then we can just click next after you've reviewed all that, and then we can just click install. And now this will take its own time to install, and I will come back later. Alright, so once the installation is complete, you should see this screen, and we have the option to run Pycharm. We will just select that and then click finish. Okay, so now in terms of the Pycharm installation, it's mostly just a bunch of customization options. So we'll click do not import settings, then click OK. You can see over here we get to select our UI theme. I'll just keep it the default Darkula because that looks pretty nice. Then we'll click next, and then over here you have a bunch of plugins that you can also install with Pycharm. These are all optional, and really you should only install them if you actually know how to use them. Like for instance, if you know what Vim is, or if you have any idea how to use the Linux Bash shell or the R language. And then we should see the Python is loading screen. Oh, sorry, Pycharm I meant. And then over here we can just click create a new project to get started. And then we can specify the location of our file. I'll just keep that the default. And then you can see under there we have project interpreter. Now interpreters are a little complicated to explain, so I won't touch that on this video. Just know that you have to click existing interpreter, then click the three dots next to the scrolling bar, and then select Python system interpreter. You can see that's the version of Python that we just installed previously. And then we can just create our project. And now you'll see this tip screen. You can normally I'll show these on startup. You can just click the checkbox to remove that and then just close it. And before you can actually run your file, Pycharm will do this thing called scanning files to index. So you're just gonna have to wait for that. But while we're waiting for that, we'll just get started. So right click your project in the project pane and then click new Python file. And then we'll just name that main again. And in here I'll do the simple print hello world. And as you can see, we're still scanning files to index, so we will just wait until that's finished. Okay, so once Pycharm has finished its background process, we can run our Python file by going to the project pane, right clicking our file, and then clicking run. So you can see hello world is outputted to the terminal, and we've successfully launched our first Python file in Pycharm. So that's all there is to the tutorial, guys. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments.